So I left Plumpton College after having worked for them for about a month back in, I think it was October or early November. No, it was October now of last year, of 2022. So the reason why I left is because I felt threatened and intimidated on Plumpton College campus by a fellow student, by a former friend of mine called Jack Lasserre. And he had been very bizarrely constructing a wheelchair at that time because he was going to go as Hector Salamanca to a Halloween party. This is it, yeah, so it must have been October. Yeah, to a Halloween party dressed as Hector Salamanca in a wheelchair, where he is the spitting image of Jesse Pinkman, and Pinkman is really the only plausible character he should go as. He was putting a lot of effort into the construction of this wheelchair as well, and took to it with an enthusiasm which disturbed me several weeks before he needed it. So I was wondering, first of all, whether or not it's true on that level. The other element of it is that I'm afraid, or I was afraid, that these people were going to try and attempt to have me framed for terrorism charges to do with the project of building a rocket on campus. He was absolutely insistent that I should use solid fuel propellant, and ammonium nitrate in particular, as the propellant for the rocket. Whereas I wanted to then, and still do now, I wanted to construct a liquid fuel engine for rockets. So that would be burning liquid oxygen, or oxygen, liquid oxygen and kerosene together to propel the rocket. All those things are explosive, but in particular, nitrate fertilizer, ammonium nitrate, is kept and stored on the Plumpton College campus, whereas liquid oxygen isn't, and so far as I'm aware anyway, nor is kerosene, so far as I'm aware. And we'd have to obviously get those things cleared with, the relevant members of staff at Plumpton College before going ahead with the whole project, right? So this comes down to the fact, I think, that I was accusing Nicola Lewis of being a terrorist at one point, which is actually something I still believe, frankly. I think she is a terrorist, or a form of terrorist. I've certainly had to live through terror in my own life, as is my mother, as is my father, and whether or not they're willing to acknowledge that or admit it, that's somewhat beside the point. I think the reason why they wouldn't acknowledge and admit that is because they feel intimidated, particularly by her, and particularly by the authorities in the local area with whom she's connected. So all this led me to fleeing the country to Amsterdam, to the Netherlands, because I thought, I don't know, out of all the countries in Europe, in continental Europe, where would I most like to go? I'd like to go to the Netherlands, I think. I think it's a very safe country. I know it's a very safe country. I know that the Dutch have their shit together so far as, refugees and things are concerned, and so far as law is concerned, and that it's a very tolerant, open, fair, and liberally minded place. So that's why I wanted to go there in particular. And there's, it's because I could have gone anywhere, frankly, for drugs if I wanted them, including, by the way, the United Kingdom, where they're very easy to get hold of, or Spain, or Portugal, or wherever, but that's beside the point for now. So I went to the Netherlands. I spent a little bit of time homeless in the Netherlands because I missed my flight back to the UK. I missed my flight back to the UK deliberately, or my bus back to the UK, I should say, because I didn't want to return. I didn't want to return to Britain because of what was going on with Jack. So I stayed out there, and then this guy showed up, this very kind stranger who was offering to pay for, me to have a hostel and to stay with him, and he had connections to vegan activist circles and hacktivist circles. So I was like, I didn't really make anything of it at that time, and I didn't really suspect the guy of anything at that time. That I did sort of start to suspect something might be up towards the end of our encounter after a few days. And then I left that hostel and eventually returned to the United Kingdom. thereafter, um, staff at Plumpton College took off me the components, i.e. 3 empty drums of hypochlorite, something which poses no threat to anyone at all, just 3 empty plastic barrels, basically. They took those off me for whatever reason they would. I don't know why. And I suspect it's due to a prejudicial decision relating to what they know already about my mental health problems. So I'm going to sue them for that. Okay? I'm suing Plumpton College for that. Because it's bigoted, it's unfair, it's nasty, it's incredibly nasty and horrible to have to go through discrimination. And, you know, always the sorts of people who do discriminate, of frankly, of the staff, like these welfare people who've never had to go through discrimination. You just know they haven't. Or some of them might have done. But you know, there's certain ones, I'm not going to mention any names, certain ones you just know have never been discriminated against. Because those are the people who discriminate against people. Yeah, it's very nasty to have to undergo discrimination. And it's not befitting any kind of academic environment. And also, there's an additional wrinkle to this, whereas Jack Lasserf is someone with a lot of sympathy towards vegan activist movements. And I know I have been followed by these people since I was working at Godminster Farm in 2018. Godminster Farm, some activists showed up in the middle of the night, trying to liberate some calves. I made my presence known to them and sort of said, "What are you doing?" And I just saw this girl running off into the distance after having, you know, been banging around by the calves and so on, and then I called the police on them. I called Somerset Police on them. Then, at Park Farm in Somerset, my next dairy job, there was an incident where some calves got out into a walkway bit by the farm at night, and I suspect those were also liberated by activists. The next job I had, I got in a bizarre argument with my boss and I quit. Or she'd got wind of this and someone in farming or something is trying to assert that I have connections to activist movements, which I most certainly don't. However, suspects who could have connected to myself, who could have connections to vegan activist movements, are my sister, Jack Lasserf, more recently, since I only met him when I went to Plumpton. As for hacktivist circles, there's our mutual friend Jack Hodge, and I returned to Amsterdam a second time, also running from the authorities here. Well, not running from the authorities because I'd committed a crime, but running from people here whose behaviour, because of my diagnosis, is being ignored by the authorities. So I felt unsafe because I felt targeted by people, and I suspect Jack Lasserf was subtly trying to threaten me with grievous bodily harm with its wheelchair business. And Nicola Lewis may well be in the mix. I suspect she probably is. Various other people could be also, such as Callum Pryor and so on, who is to this day stalking me on the internet. He's discovered my new channel and he's posting comments on my channel under one of his many aliases. This is why I have mental health problems, because of this sort of behavior since 2015. I have PTSD because I got spiked twice at the University of East Anglia. My story is not going to change anytime soon. And do you want to assert that the spikings themselves, okay, forget whether or not the motivation was to kill me, just for the time being, are you going to try to assert that the spikings themselves never happened and that those are delusions? They couldn't be delusions because there's no evidence that undermines it categorically. There's also no rational argument that undermines it categorically, such as any of the people I've said were involved with that having alibis, for instance. None of them do, so far as I'm aware. What I suspect hasn't happened is the proper and thorough investigation of these matters by the authorities, because, as I've already indicated several times, many times over, a former member of the authorities was involved in it all, i.e. Miles Cooper Bradley. the fat policeman from Essex Police, who calls himself the king of rugby online. And yeah, there's all that shit that has been going on since 2014. One or two of those people may have sympathies with vegan movements and so on. My sister might well do, actually, for that matter. I'm trying to think who else would. I don't know, actually. And then, yeah, the second time I went to Amsterdam, or went to the Netherlands, again to run and actually seek refugee status there, I was followed into the refugee camp, first time at Boodle, I think it is, in Holland, by someone else who was vegan. And had connections to vegan activist movements and hacktivist. Rowan Murphy. That's who I suspect is connected to Anonymous. Or a hacktivist movement of some description. Whether or not it's anonymous or not, I don't know. But yeah, computer geek type who I suspect of trying to put nefarious pornography on my computer for all the reasons that he would. So no real investigation has happened into all this, so I feel incredibly unsafe in this country. They've repeatedly tried to assert that all my speculation, all of my opinions, all of my beliefs, which are, by the way, amenable to change if you just show me why I am wrong. And I feel like a broken fucking record having to say this after this point. And by the way, you've been infringing the Human Rights Act left, right, and centre, barring my right to a fair trial, etc., 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 discrimination, all this other stuff going on within the system, just to hide the culpability of important or connected people to a series of very serious crimes. And that is what's really been happening here. So, yeah, I have no access to justice because of my mental illness. And Plumpton College have been corroborating that attitude and refusing to treat two students as equals, right? They're refusing to treat one person's testimony as having the same weight or the same merits as another person's testimony. Because again, neither element of either person's testimony is categorically undermined by evidence and hence is not indicative of mental illness. Do you understand? I guess they don't, because like the sorts of people involved in the police, frankly, are gibbons, and they don't sound like they can read or write that well in English, and they also are bigoted, racist, homophobic, etc. There, I said it. Fuck you.